Hi everybody. Today I wanted to show you how I replaced the battery on my Honda Pacific Coast. And the reason I'm replacing it is, let's see if I can show you. Got a battery tender junior up here plugged into an outlet, and hopefully you can see it's blinking red and green like it's Christmas. That's not a good sign. It means the battery's failed or something else has happened. In this case, I do know it's a battery failure. This battery's several years old, that's in the bike already, and so it's time to replace it. Now, I've already purchased a, I guess you pronounce this Yuasa, something like that, battery off the internet. People on the forum, the groups.io, IPC-RC forum, and also on the Facebook group both recommended this battery, so that's why I got it. It comes in the mail to you. Let's see, I'll make sure you can see this here. A little cardboard box. Open it up. It's the first time I'm opening it. You can see there's still tape on the thing. A little bit of pain to get open. And what's inside is a little instruction manual, battery acid, and the battery itself. So it actually comes with the electrolyte not in the battery. I'm not going to do it quite yet. I'm going to leave it in the box for now, set it off to the side. We'll get that ready once the old battery's out. Let me move the camera back into position here. Make sure you can see the bike okay. That looks like about right. So for those that don't know, the battery is right here, which with all our wonderful Tupperware plastic makes it a little difficult to get it out. So the first thing I'm going to do is open up my trunk. And now I'm going to see if I can bring you in here to see exactly where the battery is. That's it down in there. That's the battery. Hard to get to, right? There's a lot of plastic still around it. So we're going to have to do a little Tupperware removal party here to get it all out. Oh, and those of you that might be wondering, this thing right here is the battery cutoff switch I installed about a decade ago. I'll try and drop a link in the notes to this video so you can see it. That's it right there. Ties into the battery there. So all the bike's electricals are controlled via simple battery cutoff switch. So if I want to turn it on, I've got to put that in and go like that. Now the bike's energized. Now it's off. I installed that thing after I read about a Pacific Coast getting stolen up in British Columbia. So I figured, hey, why don't I do that? It makes it a little harder. And also, in case I ever screw something up, then it's a little more difficult to have the whole bike drop. Okay, putting the camera back on my little tripod here. I believe you can see everything again. So, how do we get in here? Well, the first thing we need to do, we need to remove this air vent that comes off the engine. And to do that, I just grab these two things and pull. It comes right out. You can see it's held in with these two clips and that correspond to there. It comes out nice and easy. I'm going to go ahead and set it aside out in the back here. I have the back half of a garage I can put these things in. I'm going to pull the camera off here again to show you something else. So now that it's open, you can see right here, normally on most people's bikes there would be a little bolt there that you have to unscrew. It'll be an Allen head most likely on yours. I never have had one there, and I specifically have not one put back in because I don't really need it, because that makes it very easy to just take this whole part off, which is what we're going to do next. Put you back on the tripod so you can see that. So assuming that you have removed that bolt in there, be sure you do, because otherwise it's not going to come out. Then I just kind of pull like that before it can start coming out. And it just kind of goes pop, pop, pop and comes out. And so there's a couple of different points here where it's connected. You see there, corresponds to that. That corresponds to there. And there should be one here to here. However, you can see my tab has broken off at some point. Someday I might fix this, but I'm not going to bother right now, so there it sits. So that's that side panel. I'm going to put it off to the side again. Now, let's take another closer look. You can see we still don't have enough access. We're going to have to do something about this panel. What it says to do in the manual, if I recall correctly, is remove the whole darn thing. And to do that, the first thing you'll need to do is remove this dude here, which is just a pull out and then a tab. And then there's a bolt there to remove. And then you also are going to have to remove this front cover. There's a bolt down there that you have to remove. There's a bolt down here you have to remove. And if I remember right, there's also a bolt, I think, back behind there that you have to remove. And you got to remove this thing as well. This one here, this crash guard cover, there's nothing to hold it on other than it's being kind of held in with plastic tabs. So I'm going to go ahead and pull it off. However, I'm not going to actually remove this whole bottom panel. There you go. See? Easy to come out. You see mine, someone, previous owner, dropped it at least twice, I think. These crash guard covers are hard to get these days. So I'm going to set both of these things off to the side. You can see my slowly growing pile of plastic as I disassemble the bike. So what instead of what I'm going to do is I'm going to unscrew this here. A little hard to see, but there's a screw right there. I'm going to undo this bolt here, and that'll be enough to allow this whole thing to kind of move out enough, which normally, as long as your plastic isn't too brittle, is enough to be able to get this battery to wiggle out as well. We'll see how it goes here. Give me a second to get the tools I need. And in fact, what I'm going to do is use the factory Honda toolkit that I have. Everyone should have one of these living in the trunk down there. I'll try to drop a link in the notes on this video to show what all should be in your toolkit. I'll go ahead and put you back up on my tripod here while I work. Got what I need. So I'm going to need an Allen wrench out of here. I believe there is one. And actually, I think this is one that I threw in after the fact, rather than use the stock one in here. And then I'm also going to need a screwdriver. I'm going to just go ahead and dump all these out onto a piece of blue shop towel to keep it all together. I'm going to be a little out of camera frame now just for a second as I do this. I'm going to go ahead and dump them all out so I can get access to what I need. Actually, come to think of it, I do think that this Allen was part of the stock kit originally. So, I've got my Allen, and I've got the smaller Phillips head screwdriver attached to the driver itself. I'm going to go ahead and remove this back one. And it is a screw. I'm not really sure why this one's a screw and everything else is Allen's, but hey, whatever. That's what Honda decided. There it is. And by the way, if you're missing any of these, I do have some stuff that I pulled out of the archives from the IPCRC that I will put up in the notes here that shows what all these different bolts are and how to get them and whatnot. So I set that off to the side in a place that isn't going to get stepped on by me, hopefully, so I don't lose those bolts, because they are a little difficult to find. Some of them Honda still does sell, though, so it just kind of depends what you need. Okay. There's the other one. This is a very common bolt that you find on these bikes, holding all our plastics together. Okay, let's see if we got enough room now. So you can see this is all kind of held together here. Mine's already been cracked here before, so I'm not too worried about manhandling it a little bit. I think I'm close to enough room. It's a little hung up here with this back part. If you are really concerned about this, there are some additional bolts that hold all this together that you can take off. The first one that you do is right here. I might just go ahead and do that even. It's a Phillips head. I'll show where they are in the truck. So you can see there's a bolt, actually it's a screw here and here that allows, and there's further back, there's more. It goes all the way back. That allows this plastic part to fold out a little bit. I'm just going to do that because I'm being a little cautious today and I don't want to potentially end up with more broken plastics than I already have, because there is a lot of broken plastics on this bike, let me tell you. The bike looks great from about 10 feet. As you get closer though, not as much. Okay, so there is that one. It looks like it's a self-tapping screw actually, that's kind of interesting. So I'll set that aside as well. And now you can see this is a little more forgiving, which allows this whole assembly to flex a little more out from the bike. But remember, it's all still connected up here. So this is where you're going to want to make a decision if you're going to what you're going to do. I think I might just go ahead and make sure you can see what I'm going to do. Yep, I'm going to remove this cover here. There is usually an Allen screw down here, and mine is actually missing for some reason. I don't know why. It's not there though. But normally you would undo an Allen bolt here. And then that allows this whole piece to just kind of pop right out. You can see mine's trimmed up because I do have Miko pegs. These guys, which take up a little space the way I have them installed. By the way, these things are awesome. I know that they're very expensive in terms of how much our bikes are worth versus what you're getting out of it. But I find them are a game changer for being able to do long highway miles. Okay, so now this all can flex a little more. You can see there's two bolts still holding it on. And I might just go ahead and take them off, just for the fun of it. It's not too bad to do this. You can see what I'm doing here, I think. Just I'm doing that. And you'll notice when you take these off, if yours is in the correct configuration, that there are a double width shoulder on these because it's holding two pieces of plastic there. So that's one. And then let's see if I can get the other here. And it holds your whole front cowl on and your bottom pan here. That's two. This one's actually not quite the right one. It only has a single shoulder, so I must have put the wrong one in there at some point, or maybe I was missing it or something else. I don't know. Again, these are pretty beat up plastic, so I'm not super mega concerned. You can see I have the battery tender harness here, so I'm just going to go ahead and disconnect it because it'll kind of come out here with everything else. And it's a little hard to see the interface down here, but this kind of undercowl has to come off first, so there is a plastic pin that it slides in there. And then there are teeth that are engaged along here that you have to be careful as you remove. This thing, the way it's been on my bike for a long time anyway, is the tab for the fairing goes on top of this lower plastic skirt. So it's a little bit of an effort to kind of wiggle things around, trying not to break anything. All this plastic is very old and fragile these days. It's just the way it is with these old bikes. Let's see, am I missing something here? And, you know, don't ever force this plastic. Like right now, it's all kind of bound up, and I'm not sure why. So I'm going to take a second here to look over. I've got this bolt undone. I've undone this bolt. There's no bolts down here that I'm aware of right now. I've undone this bolt, I've undone that bolt, and I've undone that. So we're currently hung up on our various pieces here. And I believe, if I remember right, what I've got to do is kind of pull it back a little bit, see what I'm doing? You can see I don't take this apart that often because hopefully you don't have to. And I'm just going to keep kind of coming back, trying to make sure nothing's in the way as I do it. And because I don't want to break any of these tabs. So you see I've moved out on the outside of the bearing now. Make it a little easier. And now it's starting to come a little better. And then I think this whole thing kind of goes down a little, if I remember right. You know, and everyone's going to do this a little differently, removing this bottom plastic there. And you can see I got this in front of it now. And the key to that was making sure I moved at least one of the bolts inside the trunk. You may find you need to remove more than that. It just sort of depends on your situation and how pliable your plastics are. And by the way, I highly recommend not working on any of your plastics unless it's above about 60 degrees. They become real brittle the colder it is. I learned that the hard way. So I'm still working on wiggling this out here. Trying not to damage anything too much. And just get this all to slide a little better. I'm going to be in a good shape here. But as you can see, this is not the most straightforward thing, which is why a lot of people don't go beyond here, because you're good enough now to get access to this battery. But it's going to be a little easier for me to show you just to remove the whole thing, so I'm going to. As you can see, sometimes it's a little bit of a stickler even for me to get these things off. I hung up just a little on the brake lever. There we go. There. And I kind of let it go forward a little. And you just kind of got to walk it off slowly. Try not to damage any of the other plastics. It's all fragile. There. I got it off. And you can see this one, someone repaired it with fiberglass there and there in the past. Not uncommon to have to repair these things. This one actually has some nice heat shielding there. Not all PCs got that. Okay, now, another look here. You can see we're getting closer. Now we have to remove this little bolt here so we can get access to the rest of the battery. So, here, I think I'm gonna bring you in closer now. So just give me 1 second. So I fix the tripod here. Come down looking at the ground. Hopefully none of you are getting motion sick. There. I think you can see semi-okay now what's going on. Okay, so this bolt, it looks sort of like 10mm, yes. Well, I'm going to grab out of the toolkit one of the two 10mm tools. Should make it easier. And you can use, whatever you got around the house too if you don't want to have to open up your whole toolkit and whatnot. And you can see this is part of the wiring harness here. Make sure you don't damage it too much. And because of this being hot here, this is the battery disconnect switch again. I just have to personally be careful to not accidentally hit it with this because I could end up welding the thing to it. This battery's small enough, and also since it's dead, it's not such a big deal for me. But you don't want to have a problem. So I got that bolt out, set it aside. Let's get down. I'm gonna sit down on the ground now to do this a little better. And then you can see this just comes right out. That's all it is. Nice and easy. Set that aside. So now we're getting to the point where this battery's wanting to come out a little easier. You can see here's my battery tender harness. So I'm going to kind of pop it out of the way a little bit here because it's kind of annoying. And really these days I can just replace it because the cover came off at some point when riding. And most of you probably don't actually have a battery tender. I do because I go through periods where I don't ride as much, and it's helpful for the battery health to keep it on. So I'm going to go ahead and take this off now. You can see it's just a screw. There it is. That allows that to come off. Set it aside because I don't know if I'm going to need it again or not. I didn't look too closely to see if the new battery came with one. And that allows me to get that out of the way. You can see I still have a few other things connected to it. That's fine. We'll see what those are in a second here. Now I'm going to try and maneuver this sucker out of here. Hopefully, if I can kind of get it wedged up. I'm going to switch over to the flathead screwdriver, which some of you probably are cringing at what I'm about to do, but hey. Oh, somehow we're going to get this sucker out. You can see I'm just kind of trying to walk it out a little. I may end up having to take off the seat to get better access. We shall see. And you can see why some people don't like changing the battery very much on these bikes. It's kind of a pain in the butt to do, honestly. And I kind of wonder if the last battery I put in here several years ago, if it may have been too big for this bike. Because this guy is not wanting to go very easily. I'm going to have to see if I can't extract another thing here. We'll see what I have when I take this all apart. But I actually have an auxiliary fuse block in the trunk. And that's what this ground wire goes to. I'm thinking about getting rid of it actually. I don't really need it anymore. I used to have more electrical doodads hooked up to this bike that I've mostly stripped off over the years. They weren't needed. There, okay, so I got those off. You can see they're kind of corroded. I'll have to clean that up maybe. I got that bolt off. Your bike probably is not going to have these things. That gives me just a little more room to wiggle around in here to try and get this out. So now I have the ground fully disconnected. So if I accidentally short to the hot, it shouldn't be a problem because there's no ground return path to the battery. Let's see. I really don't want to take that seat off, but I might have to because I'm having a hard time today getting a good grip to get this out of here. Come on, there. Aha, there we go. You just gotta get up with this lip. I'll show you once it's all the way out here. And there we have it. And let's see if I wrote a date code on this. Usually I do, but maybe I forgot the last time. Okay, so there's one more thing to do here, which is to remove this dude. There. Set that aside again because I'm not sure if I'll need it or not. And there you have it. There's the old battery. I don't see a date code on this guy. So I have no idea when this went in. This may have been put in Colorado, what, 4 or 5 years ago. Usually these batteries last quite a while, so I think it was an okay amount of time. So now, you can see there's a bunch of junk in here. Hey! 0.7 shim for checking your spark plug gap. I have no idea how that got there, but this can go back in my toolkit where it belongs. What other junk do I have here? That's an old chunk of wire from something. Some pine needles and other crap in here. So now what we're at this point is I've got this, which runs up to the fuse block that I have situated back up here in the trunk. Actually, no, I'm sorry. That actually runs to this thing here, and then the fuse block takes off of it. This is the bike ground here, so I will double check that it's clean enough. And then I've got the battery tender that I hooked up through that. And this is the ground for the auxiliary fuse block. So I'm going to step away for just a second. I'll leave it running though so you can hear me talk. What I'm doing is I'm just grabbing a sheet of sandpaper that I happen to have handy nearby. And I think the sandpaper came off of Amazon that I'm going to use. I actually use sandpaper for a frequent number of different things, but there we go. There's some sandpaper. I'm going to go ahead and just get a little bit of that corrosion off. I'm not as much of a stickler as some people are for getting it all gone, because, I don't know, I've never had too much of a problem with things getting seriously corroded. And anyway, I'm self-sufficient enough when I'm out on my bike riding that if I did have a problem because of corrosion, I would probably trace it down fairly quickly, actually. I've certainly done it on my truck before when I've had a ground that came off during driving my truck around. Never had anything like that on the bike, though. Okay, that one looks good. And really, this should be a lot better, but I'm not drawing that much current through this particular ground, so I'm not too worried about it. Looks pretty good. Okay. Now, let's look at this battery here and what we got to do. Okay. So, again, opening it up, there's my acid. There's the instruction book. There's the battery core. Set that aside. And here are some nuts and whatnot. And you see this is a little different than the other battery, where it's open in here, which is kind of a pain in the butt because it's actually a little difficult to get these nuts and these screws lined up. That other battery I took out was a little better designed from that perspective. Okay, so I'm going to look at the manual now. Shocker, right? Who looks at the manual? So, it's pretty straightforward. It says, remove this seal, remove the tops of this. Don't puncture it though, because that's going to get acid everywhere. Because you're going to do this. You're going to put it in all these kind of syringes together and inject it. You got to fill it all the way while on flat ground. Shows how to do that there. And then remove it, put the cap on, which is this thing here on top of this battery seal. Don't hammer it down, only push it down, and then you're done. And you got to wait for the electrolyte to absorb. It says 20 to 60 minutes, which should be just fine for this battery. Because I'm not going to ride right away. I'm not going to ride today. But I did want to replace the battery because it was convenient for me. So I'm pulling this off. You can see there's one of those stupid gummy things on it. Set those aside for now. I'm going to pull this off, and you can see here are those kind of little needle things that the electrolyte will go in. And it does say this is sulfuric acid, so do be careful if you're doing this and you bought your own battery and you didn't get a store to do it for you. Make sure you have eye shields. I do in the form of some glasses, actually. They're not perfect, but they're better than nothing. Then you can also see, it says to flush your eyes immediately if you have a problem. I do have water on hand in case something happens, and there are people very close by that will hear if I start screaming from getting battery acid in my eyes. So, good to go. And actually, funny story, my grandfather had a battery explode in his face when he was working as a diesel mechanic back in the late 40s or early 50s in New Jersey. And he was the only guy in the shop, because he was doing extra time, and it actually really screwed his eyes up. It changed the color of his eyes. He had to wait for several hours with his face under a faucet until someone came and found him because he couldn't see. So do be careful. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 cells, because each cell is giving you about a little more than a volt, or a little more than 2 volts rather, so you get 12 volts. So line it all up, stab it in. It's a little hard to see on this camera. I'll unmount you again and bring you in close. So you can see those bubbles rising? I don't know how easy that is to see there. Maybe that's a little easier. You can see the levels going down on most of these. The instructions said to kind of tap it a little, because what it's doing is it's slowly letting the air out from in here to replace the sulfuric acid in there as this all goes down. So we'll have to wait a minute to show you as it does all that. So while it's doing that, quick word back to these things and these little nuts that are going to go in the back here. some people have found that if you get a little tiny piece of foam and put it behind, that helps to get this in the right spot so you can get the screw in easier. You can find people talking about it on the forums and whatnot. It's definitely a good trick because of the space constraints that we have on our Pacific coasts. Okay, so I've got all those nuts out and ready to go when it's time. Yeah, it's draining along nicely, but grab some oil here. So just try to show what that looks like. Oh, they changed the design. Oh, that's much easier now. Okay, so maybe this isn't going to be as horrible as it used to be. But still, if you do run into that problem, that's how you would fix it. And I do have a nut in there that I don't want in there for the moment. Let's see if we can get it out. It might have to live in there until I can turn this upside down. So again, remember, do this on a flat surface for the battery acid to go in. You could even start this process, I think, before you start moving the plastics on the bike off to the side. I didn't, and now we have to sit here a little bit as it does it. Well, that's going. I don't know if there's anything else I should show you on the bike right now. I know some people asked on one of the forums about where the fuel gauge is. It's there. You can find stuff online about what to do about it if you don't like the way it measures the fuel. Of course, there's the exhaust down there. You all know where that is. And the brake and whatnot. Someone was asking recently about where the brake assembly all is with the switch, and it's back in there somewhere. And you can see where I'm at right now on the bike. I've got 67,000 miles, looks like, currently. I haven't ridden since, geez, March, I guess, because of the situation in the world and what they've asked us to do down here in Monterey County. Here's my RAM mounts. I have one on each side, so I put my phone and other things on there. A little Honda Marine voltmeter and my idiot light to watch my voltage levels, which is important. And someone had asked recently about these pockets. I know they're getting hard to find because the 89 models, they come off of somewhat easily because they did not have this retention strap. This is from a later model bike, which is why I had to replace it because the previous owner lost his on a ride. It blew right off. There it is. Okay, let's check on this battery again. And it's getting close. Let's see if you can see the level. I'll wait until it's really down. While you're at it down here, it's never a bad idea to check the bolts on your center stand. Very rarely they can back out and give you problems. Also, good idea to check the foot pegs. My driver's foot peg actually almost fell off a few months ago while I was riding. It backed out so much. And so we're almost to the end here. Back up on the tripod. You can see okay. Yeah, almost done. And until you put this the electrolyte into the battery kind of stays good forever. And while that's waiting to drain, I'm going to look for a Sharpie. I think I have one in here somewhere. Maybe I don't. Found my Sharpie. So I want to label this battery with when I changed it. And I'm going to get a piece of blue tape to make it a little easier on myself. The thing you can't see right now is how much of a disaster back half of my garage is. Having a half of a garage to do stuff in isn't ideal. Okay, so I've written the date on this, and I'm just going to put it right there. And by the way, always double check that negative, positive. I have once saw one of these that was backwards for some reason. I don't know why. Shouldn't matter, but that was the wrong battery for sure. Okay, so we're all good and drained. Being very careful not to get any of that anywhere. That's one of the reasons I wear gloves when I work on things. I'm going to go ahead and put it back in that box. Let that sit off to the side. Okay, do not open. That's right. Once this is sealed, it stays sealed. So, go ahead and try and line it up. And this is just done with your fingers. Don't use a hammer. You don't want to make the battery gods angry. There, that looks pretty good. It's all on there nice and firm. And let's see. It looks like I may have got a little drip there, so I'm going to grab another blue shop towel. Make sure I don't have a drip of sulfuric acid that could cause problems later, because it's not a very friendly chemical. Yeah, I think I just had a little tiny drip, or it could have been the other stuff, but there. Now it looks good. And if you want to be super cautious to make sure you don't have to do this again right away, you let it sit for 20 minutes to an hour, check the voltage. I'm not going to do that right now. I'm just going to go ahead and start putting it back in. So, swivel around again so you can see in here. And there are a couple things I've got to hook up. This is my positive connection, and I also need to remember to hook up the positive on the battery tender. Your positive connection is going to look a little different, but because I have this over here, this is my positive now, and the positive for the bike is actually in here somewhere. So I actually did this also partially because now it's a lot longer. Otherwise, it's a real pain in the butt for you to be back in here trying to work on that, because it's at least on the 89s, on some of them it's kind of short. So that could be a reason to do something like this, because you can make these longer. Go ahead and just clean that a little. Make sure it looks pretty. That looks good. And let's see, that looks fine. And that looks fine, yep. Okay. And because it's longer, I can do this. See how nice this is and easy to work with. So it's going to go like that, and that'll go on the top like that. And these new longer bolts are great. They used to not be like this. Okay, so that's back in there, and you can see it's going to be a little hard to align. So the trick I've found over the years is to use the screwdriver to gently tap that around until it's lined up pretty well. I've before gotten and done that even, and then I'm going to go like that. Oops. There it is. See, is this, yeah, it's the right size. I can even use this to start it. Okay, so it's started just a little. Switch over the right Phillips head. Tighten it up enough so that it's in a good spot. And now I'm going to slide that in. Tighten it down nice and tight. And you can look in from the top to make sure it's doing what you want. And if for some reason your bike's configured a little different, these YTX12-BS batteries actually can be done from the top as well for these posts. So nice and tight, not going to go anywhere when we're riding. And you can see there's actually enough room here. I could do the negative now if I wanted to too. You know, I might actually do that. But before I do that, I'm going to actually put a piece of blue tape over top of the terminal here, just so I don't accidentally short it out or anything. This blue tape's enough for 12 volts, as long as it's not too humid or wet out. I don't need it for the life of the bike. This is just to help me when I'm handling it back in, that I don't actually accidentally touch this terminal on anything. Otherwise, you could use electrical tape, which would be a lot better. I just don't have any handy right now. Or you put this all the way back in and then reconnect the ground. It's kind of whatever you want to do. So then this is the bike ground. This one's been beat up just a teeny little bit. I'm even going to have to reshape it actually. I don't know what happened to this sucker. But it doesn't look very good, does it? I think the last battery I had in here must not have been the right one or something, because this was pretty darn mangled. Let's see what I can do. Just try and get this back into some shape that actually looks sort of right. Jeez, I don't know. And you can see I broke the darn copper. Wow. That's pretty close to what it should be. There's still something going on with mine, but it's good enough. And if you do end up having more of a failure on this, you can always trim this a little and redo the ground. It's not a problem. So, make sure you can still see me. Okay. Using a GoPro Hero 5 that came out of Leland Shepard's estate, actually. Leland had a couple of cameras that I ended up with specifically so I can do bike videos like this for people. And if we're able to do the big 2020 ride, if things don't get shut down again, then I'll be bringing the camera with me to be able to take some videos of all of us together riding. I think that's what he'd like us to do. Okay, so this one you can see it's being a bit of a pain. It's having a little bit of a hard time getting it started, but okay, there, now it's starting. Now it's on. Now I have sufficient room to bring in these other things. So this is, again, the one for the rest of the accessories that I have installed. Someday I'll probably get rid of that. Not today, though. And then the battery tender also sort of crams into all this mess. This is not the ideal situation, by the way. Like, I'm sure some of you who are very big purists are cringing just a little bit seeing me do what I'm doing here, but hey, it's bikes. These bikes are old. We're gonna not have too many more years with our Pacific Coast before all the plastics are broken anyway, so we need to enjoy our bikes as much as we can while we can still ride them. Okay, everything is now in there. I may have to do this once I redo it again once I'm in, just because it's kind of a bit of a mess. That was what was nice about that other battery. It had multiple posts to screw things into. There. That looks pretty secure. Okay. See there, you can see the rest of it. Boy, it's going to end up being an hour-long video by the time this is all done. This is a good time, by the way, just to double check. Make sure your 7.5 amp fuse is good. Yep, looks good for the battery tender harness. Kind of a pain to get back in there to fix it otherwise. And I'm just going to try and gently slip this whole mess back in. And there is something in the way back here. There we go. You can see why it's important to make sure you don't accidentally ground out the positive negative. Come on. There we go. Look at that. That looks pretty good. And this needs to be tucked away a little. Oh, it's starting to pull out some. I'll fix that another day. Not today, though. Okay. Battery's in. Now what do we do? Well, first thing I'm going to do is see if the bike is getting voltage or not. So I'm going to turn the back on. And let's see. It might not have very much voltage yet because that electrolyte might still be doing its job, but we'll see. Yeah, 12 volts. We're doing good. Little I'm not happy lights on, that would be a bad indication if you're riding and that turns on, at least the way my bike's set up with all the LED lights and whatnot. Okay, so set you back down here. You can see what I'm doing okay. And disconnect that. Okay, now I'm going to start doing the reverse of all this stuff by first putting the, let's see, where did it go? Make sure I have the right one. Putting the battery restraint back in. That's this thing here. And your bike is probably not going to be as messy as mine with getting all this in, because I have all these other electrical doodads I've put on over the years. So hopefully you can sort of see what's going on. You can hear my neighbor upstairs talking on the phone, I think. It's the 3rd of July, and all of us have the day off in town. All of us working stiffs, so that's why I'm doing this today. I actually have the time in the middle of the day on a weekday. So I put that bolt back in. It's a 10 millimeter. Just tighten it back up slowly. You might want to use a ratchet or something like that, and it might be easier for you. I'm just using the toolkit out of the bike though, just to show you it can all be done. There, nice and secure. That'll make sure that battery doesn't go anywhere while you're riding. It's enough to allow it to move around a little bit, but it's not going to try and dance away anywhere. Okay, next thing we've got to do is put back on this big chunk of plastic here that we took off the bottom of the bike. So let me go get it. I cleverly set it aside so I would not potentially damage it. Now again, you don't necessarily need to remove the whole plastic. I did specifically so it's a little easier to show you what to do, and because all this is starting to get a little fragile. So first thing I'm going to do here, snake through my battery tender harness. I like to have it here personally. It's easy to get at after a ride. Other people do other things. I've seen them coming out of the trunk and other places like that, or out between the seats. That's where I have mine now. So I'm starting to work on getting this in, and I believe, if I remember right, I don't do this very often, so I always have to remind myself. I'm gonna start back here at the front and get that started and on a little, because it's difficult with all the shape to get this all in. And now I'm aligning that up so it slides on like that. So that'll be fine in a minute. So let's make sure this is back in place with the rear passenger peg. Just like that. And is this actually going to go on easier than it came off? Maybe. Wouldn't that be novel? I've actually seen some people take this peg off to make it easier as well. I never have though, and so it's kind of up to you if you want to do that to make it easier. There we go. And it's just kind of a matter of moving the plastics around a little bit at a time until you start to do what you want. Because it's not always easy to get them to cooperate with you, as you can see. These naughty, naughty plastics. Back on, almost have the front lined up. And sometimes you got to move some of this stuff around a little bit to try it. So I am actually moving that brake lever just a little. So you can see it still needs to go forward a little bit. So close, so close. You can see why this is so easy to break. Why some people don't do it all the way. And there's another video of how to do this, of course, that someone else put out a while back. PC800 Fixes this is a YouTube channel for him. He does not remove this all the way, if I recall. He put that out about 9 years ago, and it's still a very good reference video. And you can see what I've done here is I've actually bound it up on my Miko pegs, which is not great. So I'm going to have to just gingerly try and back all this off just a little. As you add stuff to the bike, it just gets a little bit harder to maintain everything. But it's worth it for some of this equipment. Like the Miko pegs are really key to my enjoyment of riding long miles, which I often do. So I'm going to use my leg to hold that there as I try and dance all this back up into position. There, we're almost to the point where it's supposed to be. So I gotta work in the back here to try and get all this together. I think, make sure you can see what I'm doing. Yeah, you can see that. It's getting hot in this garage too. I'm starting to sweat. So the plastics are a little more flexible, luckily. So now that's all kind of in more or less the right position. There's still some work to get it perfectly lined up. Close enough though for what we're doing. Now let's see here. We gotta do just a little bit more to get this realigned. It's gotta come forward just a touch, I believe. So this can all shift down a little bit. So it's got to come forward and up. There. Push the brake lever down, it all kind of went into place. Again, this goes underneath this. Back here, there's this plastic thing that goes into the kind of retention tab on the, what's it called, the other plastic, and there's some grooves that all line up. There's that. That all looks pretty good. That's coming out about where I want it. I'm going to suck some of the excess back in though, so it'll be about like that. Because that way you can have it up out of the way while you're riding it. It makes it a little easier. And then the more difficult part, let me take you off the tripod to show this to you, because otherwise it might not be super clear. Okay, so there are some, let's see, some teeth that line up with this front cowling, and as I recall, this goes underneath the front cowling. So let me set the tripod up in a way you can see my struggles with that. Let's see, I'm gonna lower it. If I had been smart, I would have gone and got the bolts for this. I did not. I'm just lining it up first right now. There, it's a better view. So that goes in the back, that goes in the front. I forget the exact word that Honda uses for what this part's called, but mine's actually somewhat damaged. I think someone may have forgotten to bolt it all the way down once and rode, and it caught the wind a little. I gotta move you just a little because I gotta get down on my arms here to try and line up some of this a little better, because these all should pop into each other somehow. Come on. There. Okay, so then I popped in the plastic pin there, and almost have this aligned. What's going on here? Does that go in front? Maybe it does go in front. Let me try it the other way. Yeah, your mileage may vary when you're working with these plastics, let me tell you. And this guy here is just so temperamental and fragile too. You can see there's already a break in my plastic there from some previous owner taking all this on and off. Well, no, I think that is the right order. Okay, I'm going to try and jam that back together a little more. And may have to end up being close enough for today. There are some wonkiness with this particular panel. It's actually a panel I got off of eBay a while ago to replace mine that was much more broken. And I think it might have been from a slightly earlier, or a slightly later or earlier revision of the plastics. Okay, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bolts. I'm just off camera grabbing my bolts right now. Okay, so bottom one first. I'm going to use the double. So there's a double length collar on it, which helps you to not break plastics. Actually, let me look at this a little closer. I'm going to use a single down here because of how screwed up mine is. Again, put back what you got if you can. Or if it becomes vitally important, you can go and buy the OEM versions on the internet, and I'll put in the links again to how to figure out what's what on these bikes for the bolts. And it is a pain in the butt sometimes to get them to line up with threads, but do not force those threads in, or you will not be happy later on when you have to get a tap to chase out buggered up threads on these bikes. So far I haven't had to do that on this bike, but I have had those problems on other previous bikes I've owned. Come on. You can do it. So it's not wanting to go in quite right. I'm not sure why. I don't want to force it down, damage any of these bolts. So let's step back a second and look at what's going on. I think it's maybe not perfectly aligned. Let me realign a little. Give it another go. There we go. I was just off axis a little bit. It was rotated forward a little bit and I had to rotate it back. And there. That's looking about right. Again, I used the wrong bolt there because that's just what I have. I should have used this one, but I'm going to use this one up here instead because the fairing plastic is a little harder to get than some of these other ones and it's more expensive, so I'd rather preserve it. So again, just tightening that down, make sure you find the hole right. There we go. Okay, those two are done. And while you're at it, you can double check to make sure there is a bolt here. Mine there's not, it fell off long ago, and I've never gotten a replacement, but you know, you might actually want one there. Don't follow my example all the time. Okay, let's see. Can you see the pipe long enough? Yes. Okay, so then the next one is a single here. You may have to do just a little work to find the right alignment. And it should go in nice and smooth, just like it came out. And snug it down. There we go. Nice and firm, right? Now, we got to do this one here. This was the screw, as I recall. It was this screw here with the collar on it. And again, I'll put the link in the notes of this video so you can find it. So it goes through, you find the hole, you screw it in. I don't know why they decided to put a screw here. You'd think that they would have just kept doing the same bolts like they did everywhere else. But hey, Honda knows best, right? Right. Okay, so I got one screw left. Lost my glasses there. I'm going to take them off in a minute. And it goes into here. I'm trying to show you that. Okay, so this may be a little difficult because of lighting and whatnot, but we're going to do the best we can here. Even with my new overhead shop lights, it's hard. So it goes in the front here where I took this one off. You may have taken more off, that's fine. It can make some of this easier to take apart more, actually, even if it takes a couple more minutes at a time. How fragile these plastics are getting, it's not a bad idea. And you gotta work to align the screw with the outside trunk plastic. Okay, it's not very good clearance either, but that's enough for me to get that tight. There, all done. Okay, not quite done though, because we still need to put a few more pieces of plastic on. So let me throw you back on the tripod. You can see here. We'll do this one next. Make sure I have this in the right order. Let's see if I can remember how to do this. I'll try and start with the back first. And actually, see there are these two tabs here and here that actually clip onto our rear crash guard. It's pretty clever. So, it all kind of goes in after a fashion. see, this can be a bit of a experimental process to get these in place. Every bike's a little bit different too, and what's happened to it over the years may have upset how these things go in just quite right. So on this one, I'm going to have to use a little mechanical persuasion, looks like. Come on. Just enough to kind of get into the lip area. There. And then there's tabs under, one tab there that lines it. And then the last tab's up here on the front, which I can flex in. There we go. Crash guard is reinstalled, and there's that other tab there. That looks good. Okay, next crash guard, the front crash guard. Actually, there, while I go and find it. I'm also just taking a peek to see if I have any extra parts for this. I do have extra screws for this bike somewhere that I got from someone at some point, but not seeing them right now. Okay, so I'm bringing up several pieces of plastic here to have them around. Okay, front crash guard, as you can see, and there is one bolt. Mine does not have one. I would suggest you do, though. I'm living on borrowed time without it. So I'm just put that in first, those tabs. And there's retention tabs that go on to the crash guard, and it all kind of pops into place. And mine does not line up very well anymore because these plastics have been so abused by me and previous owners. Yeah, this is a 1989 bike and it's 2020, so it's been a lot of time and miles on this bike. A lot of different owners manhandling and abusing these plastics, but we do the best we can to get these things back together, looking okay. Trying to get these tabs lined up. That's about as good as I'm going to get it today, I think. You can work a lot to try to get these perfect and everything lined just right, but at least on my bike, it isn't going to do it very well for me today. But it's on there pretty good. Not going to come off for me. Now I'm going to replace this guy here. Tabs here and here, and also there is this here. So, like that, and like that, and like that. Nice and good in there. Next up is the top plastic, and again there are 3 points that it attaches. Can you see this okay? You up just a little. Okay, I think that's good. So here, here, and here there are tabs on the plastic, and also there are some retention things on the front. So I'm going to start in the front. Yeah, you can see everything okay. And by the way, this is easier when you're trying to not stand out of the way of the camera. But hey, how else are you going to learn if someone like me doesn't show all these steps to this bike? Because it's not easy for the first-time PC owner. Even if you've owned a lot of other motorcycles, these plastics on PCs are sort of unique. There's not very many other makes and models of bikes with this much plastic around them. So I've lined up everything on here okay. And then I'm working it underneath my seat. Otherwise, you may have to take your seat off. I never have had to, but it kind of just depends on your seat to make sure these tabs get under just right. And then there's a place there it pops in. There's a place there it pops in. And the one back there that's broken up mine. That panel's all back in. Boy, I need to wipe this bike down one of these days. And then, last step is the air guard. Yeah, you can see it. Make sure I have the line correctly. And it's a good idea to check that the retention clips are in when you put it back in, because once or twice I've heard of people having those clips unexpectedly disassemble, and then they lose these air vents while they're riding, and they're not very common to find. You can get them occasionally on eBay, but they're getting more expensive. Not as bad as the mirrors yet, though. Alright, all back in together. Oh yeah, there is that one bolt there I forgot to tell you to put in if it's on your bike. My bike doesn't have it because someone removed it and never bothered putting it back. So, that's it. You can see it's all reassembled. I'll go ahead and drop the lid so you can see it all in its glory. All done. It's all in there. I'm going to go ahead and sign off now. I'm going to put my toolkit away down there and clean up a little, and I'm sure you don't want to see that. But hey, that's how you replace a battery on a Honda Pacific Coast motorcycle. And I should have another 4 to 6 years with this battery before I need another one. So, pretty happy about that. Let me know what you want me to work on next on this bike, and I can do videos of it as I have time. I do have quite a few different things I need to do to it, so I'll write it down and I'll get it done as I can. Anyway, hope to see you out on the road soon. Talk to you all later.